What if Palpatine trained Leia instead of Luke? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. A red lightsaber ignites in the darkness. The blade belongs to a woman standing over bodies of rebel fighters on Alderaan. Governor Leia, the Emperor's apprentice, the most feared enforcer in the galaxy. But this isn't the Leia we know. This is the Leia who was taken as a child, trained by Palpatine himself, molded into a weapon of the Empire. And now she's hunting her own brother without even knowing it. One single moment changed everything. One choice by the Emperor 15 years ago set the galaxy on a completely different path. A path where the bright-eyed princess of Alderaan became the Empire's greatest monster. Where Luke Skywalker grew up alone, unaware his twin sister was alive. Where Darth Vader unknowingly trained his own daughter to kill. This is that story. It begins on Alderaan, 5 years after the Empire's rise. Princess Leia Organa is only 5 years old, playing in the palace gardens, learning about duty and compassion from Bail and Breha Organa. She has her mother's kind eyes and her father's stubborn chin. But there is something else within her, something that hums beneath her skin like electricity, something that reaches out into the stars, and Emperor Palpatine feels it. Emperor Palpatine sits in his throne room on Coruscant, his yellow eyes closed as he extends his consciousness across the galaxy. He searches constantly for Force-sensitive children, potential threats or tools to be molded. And then he feels it. A presence on Alderaan. Bright, powerful, female. He smiles, his withered lips pulling back to reveal yellowed teeth. The daughter of Bail Organa. How deliciously ironic. The senator who speaks so loudly against the Empire, raising a child who could become the Empire's greatest weapon. He opens his eyes and activates his comm. Lord Vader, come to me. I have a task for you. Darth Vader stands in the meditation chamber of his Star Destroyer, the Devastator. He is surrounded by silence. The only sound, his mechanical breathing. When the Emperor's summons comes, he turns and makes his way to the holo terminal. The blue image of Palpatine flickers to life, and Vader kneels. What is thy bidding, my master? There is a child on Alderaan, strong in the Force, the daughter of Senator Organa. You will retrieve her and bring her to me, alive and unharmed. She is to be my new apprentice. Vader hesitates for only a moment. The Emperor has never mentioned taking another apprentice before. What of me, my master? You remain my enforcer, Lord Vader. But this child will serve a different purpose. She will be my political instrument, groomed to rule in ways that brute force cannot achieve. Now go. Do not fail me. The Devastator drops out of hyperspace above Alderaan, its massive wedge-shaped hull blotting out the stars. On the surface, alarms blare throughout the palace. Bail Organa races through the corridors, his heart pounding. He reaches Leia's room where Breha is already there, holding their daughter close. They have to leave. Now. But even as they gather what they can, they hear the march of boots in the hallways. Stormtroopers, dozens of them. Bail pushes his family behind him as the door explodes inward. White-armored soldiers flood the room, their blasters trained on the family. And then Vader enters. His presence fills the room like a physical weight. The temperature seems to drop. Breha gasps and pulls Leia tighter, but the little girl doesn't cry. She stares at the dark figure with wide eyes, more curious than afraid. Vader's mask turns toward her, and he stops. For a moment, he simply stares. There is something about this child, something that tugs at the edges of his consciousness, a warmth he hasn't felt in decades. He pushes the feeling aside. "Please!" Bale steps forward, his voice steady despite his fear. "She's just a child. She hasn't done anything wrong. Whatever you want with her, take me instead." Vader's voice is cold and mechanical. "The Emperor does not want you, Senator. Only the girl. Stand aside." Bale doesn't move. "I won't let you take her." Vader raises his hand, and Bale is lifted off his feet. The invisible grip tightens around his throat, and Breha screams. Leia watches, her small hands balling into fists. "Stop it! Stop hurting my papa!" Her voice is shrill with anger and fear. And something else happens. The stormtroopers nearest to her stumble back as if pushed by an invisible force. Vader's head snaps toward her, and he lowers his hand. Bale collapses to the floor, gasping. Vader approaches Leia slowly, his mechanical breathing the only sound in the room. "Do not be afraid, child. No harm will come to you if you cooperate. You are special. The Emperor wishes to teach you." Leia glares at him, tears finally streaming down her face. "I don't want to go with you. I want to stay with my mama and papa." Vader kneels, bringing himself to her eye level. His mask is expressionless, but his voice is almost gentle. "What you want is irrelevant. This is your destiny." He reaches out and takes her hand. His glove is cold against her small palm. "Come. Now." Breha lunges forward, but stormtroopers hold her back. Leia is pulled away, looking back at her parents as she's carried out of the room. The last thing she sees is her mother collapsing in grief and her father staring after her with helpless rage. The shuttle ride to the Devastator is silent. Leia sits strapped into a seat that's too big for her, flanked by stormtroopers. Vader stands at the viewport, staring out at the stars. She doesn't understand what's happening. All she knows is that she's been taken from her home, and the fear is starting to set in. On the Devastator, she's escorted to a small cabin. It's sterile and cold, nothing like her warm bedroom on Alderaan. She's given food and water, but she doesn't touch them. She sits on the bunk and hugs her knees, trying not to cry. Hours pass. The ship jumps to hyperspace, and the blue tunnel of light fills the viewport. Leia watches it, wondering where they're taking her, wondering if she'll ever see her parents again. Eventually, exhaustion overcomes her, and she falls asleep. When she wakes, they've arrived at Coruscant. The city planet sprawls beneath them, an endless expanse of metal and light. Leia has never seen anything like it. She's led through the hangar of the Imperial Palace. Stormtroopers on all sides. The halls are vast and intimidating, decorated with dark banners bearing the Imperial crest. Everything is sharp angles and cold surfaces. There is no warmth here, no life. She's brought to the throne room. The doors slide open with a hiss, and she sees him for the first time. Emperor Palpatine sits on a raised throne, his face hidden in shadow. The room is dimly lit, illuminated only by the faint glow of the city outside the massive windows. Vader leads her forward and then steps aside. "Leave us." Vader hesitates for only a moment before bowing and retreating. The doors close behind him, and Leia is alone with the Emperor. "Come closer, child." Let me look at you. Leia doesn't move. She stands in the center of the room, her small fists clenched at her sides. Palpatine chuckles, a dry rasp that echoes through the chamber. Such spirit. Good. I have no use for cowards. He rises from his throne and descends the steps, his robes trailing behind him. As he enters the light, Leia sees his face fully for the first time. It's withered and scarred, his eyes burning yellow. He looks like something out of a nightmare. But she doesn't look away. You hate me, don't you? Leia's voice is small but defiant. You took me from my family. You're a bad man. Palpatine stops in front of her and tilts his head. A bad man? Is that what your parents taught you? That the Empire is evil? That I am a tyrant? Leia nods. They said you destroyed the Republic, that you hunt the Jedi, that you hurt people who don't agree with you. Palpatine smiles. And what do you think, child? Do you believe everything your parents told you? Leia hesitates. She wants to say yes, but something in his tone makes her pause. I don't know. Palpatine nods slowly. At least you are honest. That is more than I can say for most. Come, let me show you something. He turns and walks toward the window. After a moment, Leia follows. They stand together, looking out over the city. Do you see that? Palpatine gestures to the sprawling metropolis below. Trillions of beings, all living their lives. Eating, sleeping, working, loving. They go about their days without fear because the Empire protects them. Before I brought order, the galaxy was drowning in chaos. The Republic was corrupt and inefficient. Crime syndicates ruled entire sectors. Planets were left to fend for themselves, while senators argued over meaningless bureaucracy. I ended that. I gave the galaxy peace. Leia looks up at him. But you hurt people to do it. Palpatine's smile fades. Yes, I did. Because sometimes, child, peace requires sacrifice. Sometimes, to save the many, the few must suffer. Your parents believe in diplomacy and debate. They believe that if people simply talk long enough, they will find common ground. But I have lived for many years, and I have learned that words are wind. Action is what changes the galaxy. Leia doesn't respond. She's only 5 years old, and the concepts he's talking about are beyond her understanding. But she feels the weight of them, the complexity. Palpatine kneels beside her, bringing himself to her level. I did not bring you here to hurt you, Leia. I brought you here because you are special. You have a gift, a power that most beings will never know, and I am going to teach you to use it. What kind of power? The Force. It flows through all living things, but only a few can wield it. You are one of them. With proper training, you could move objects with your mind, influence the thoughts of others, see events before they happen. You could become greater than you ever imagined. Leia looks down at her hands. Is that what happened in my room? When the soldiers fell back? Palpatine nods. Yes, you instinctively reached out with the Force to protect yourself. But that was wild and undisciplined. I will teach you control. I will teach you to wield your power like a blade. And in return, I ask only for your loyalty. Leia looks up at him, her young mind racing. Why me? Why not someone else? Because you have potential, and because your parents are important figures in the galaxy. By training you, I send a message. Even those who oppose me are not beyond my reach. The words are chilling, but Leia is too young to fully grasp their implications. She only knows that she's trapped here, far from home, with no way to escape. And so she nods, not because she agrees, but because she doesn't know what else to do. Good. Your training begins tomorrow. For now, rest. You will need your strength. He rises and walks back to his throne, leaving Leia standing alone at the window. She stares out at the city, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. She doesn't know it yet, but her life as she knew it is over. The girl she was is gone. What remains will be shaped by the Emperor's hand. The next morning, Leia is taken to a training room deep within the palace. It's a large, circular chamber with polished black floors and walls lined with various weapons and equipment. Palpatine is already there, waiting. He gestures for her to approach. Today, we begin with the basics. The Force is not simply a tool, Leia. It is a living energy that binds the galaxy together. To wield it, you must first learn to sense it. Close your eyes. Leia obeys, her small frame tense. Good. Now, breathe. Clear your mind of all distractions. Feel the world around you, not with your eyes or ears, but with your instincts. Leia tries, but her mind is a storm of fear and confusion. She can't focus. I can't do it. You can. You simply lack discipline. Again, they spend hours on this exercise. Palpatine is patient but firm, correcting her constantly. By the end of the session, Leia is exhausted and frustrated, but she's starting to feel something. A faint hum at the edges of her awareness. A sense of the room around her, even with her eyes closed. Good. That is the first step. Tomorrow, we will go further. Over the following weeks, Leia's training intensifies. Palpatine teaches her to move objects with the Force, starting with small items like stones and gradually progressing to larger objects. He teaches her to sense the emotions of others, to read their intentions, and he teaches her philosophy. He shows her recordings of Senate debates from the final days of the Republic, endless arguments that accomplish nothing. Senators more concerned with their own power than the good of the galaxy. He shows her worlds torn apart by crime and war, places the Republic failed to protect, and he shows her the Empire's response. Swift and decisive action that brings order. Leia is young, but she's intelligent. She begins to see the patterns, the inefficiency, the corruption, and she begins to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the Emperor is right. But she still misses her parents. At night, alone in her room, she cries herself to sleep. She dreams of Alderaan's green fields and her mother's warm embrace. But those dreams feel more distant with each passing day. One day, Palpatine takes her to a different chamber. This one is darker, lit only by dim red lights. Darth Vader is waiting inside, standing with his arms crossed. Lord Vader will oversee your combat training. You will learn to defend yourself and to strike down your enemies. Leia looks up at Vader, her heart pounding. The dark figure nods slowly. Are you ready, child? Leia swallows hard. Yes. He ignites a training saber and hands it to her. The blade is red, just like his own. It feels heavy in her small hands, but she grips it tightly. Vader steps back, and activates his own blade. The crimson light fills the room. "Show me what you can do." Leia lunges forward, swinging the saber clumsily. Vader sidesteps easily and taps her shoulder with his blade. The training saber stings and she yelps. Again. She attacks again, and again he deflects her. This goes on for what feels like hours. Each time, Vader corrects her form, her stance, her grip. He is harsh, but not cruel. And slowly, Leia begins to improve. As they train, Vader finds himself studying her. There is something about this child that unsettles him. A familiarity he can't explain. Her determination reminds him of someone, though he can't place who. He pushes the thought aside and focuses on the lesson. You rely too much on strength. Use your instincts. Let the Force guide your movements. Leia grits her teeth and tries again. This time, she feels it. A faint tug in her gut that tells her where Vader will strike. She moves to block, and their sabers clash. For the first time, she successfully defends herself. Vader pauses. Better. Keep practicing. By the end of the session, Leia is drenched in sweat and her arms ache. But there's a spark of pride in her chest. She did it. She defended herself. Vader deactivates his saber and looks down at her. You have potential. Do not waste it. Months turn into years. Leia grows from a child into a young woman, and her training never stops. Palpatine molds her carefully, teaching her not just the Force, but politics and strategy. He takes her to Senate sessions and has her observe the senators. He teaches her to identify weakness and exploit it, to read people like books, to manipulate them with words and subtle influence. Leia proves to be a quick study. She has a natural talent for politics, a sharp mind that sees connections others miss. Palpatine is pleased. He begins to give her small tasks, delivering messages, observing meetings, gathering intelligence, and Leia performs them flawlessly. But the more she learns, the more her worldview shifts. She sees the Senate for what it is, a den of vipers, each senator more concerned with their own advancement than the welfare of their people. She sees the Republic's failures laid bare, worlds left to rot while politicians debate endlessly. And she sees the Empire's efficiency. When the Emperor gives an order, it is carried out. There is no debate, no hesitation, just action and results. Slowly, insidiously, she begins to believe. By the time Leia is 15, she is no longer the frightened child taken from Alderaan. She is poised and confident, a young woman who moves through the imperial court with ease. She wears black robes and carries a red lightsaber at her side. Her connection to the Force has grown stronger with each passing year. She can sense emotions with ease, manipulate weak minds, and move objects with barely a thought. Palpatine begins to rely on her more and more, sending her on missions across the galaxy. Her first assignment is on Corellia, where a corrupt governor is skimming funds meant for infrastructure. Leia arrives with a small contingent of stormtroopers and goes straight to the governor's office. He's a fat, greasy man who looks at her with thinly veiled contempt. "And who are you supposed to be, girl?" Leia smiles coldly. "I am the Emperor's hand. And you are under arrest for embezzlement and treason." The governor laughs. The emperor wouldn't send a child to deal with me. I have friends in high places. Friends who will ensure this goes away. Leia reaches out with the Force, and the governor's laughter dies in his throat. His face goes pale as invisible pressure closes around his windpipe. Do you feel that? That is the Force, the power of the Emperor flowing through me. And if you do not cooperate, I will crush your throat and leave you gasping on the floor like the worm you are. She releases him, and he collapses into his chair, coughing. Leia signals her troopers, and they drag him away. The credits he stole are recovered and redistributed. The infrastructure projects resume, and Leia returns to Coruscant. Her mission complete. Palpatine is pleased. Well done, my apprentice. You are learning, but this was only a test. Your true work lies ahead. Over the next few years, Leia undertakes dozens of missions. She roots out corruption, eliminates threats to the Empire, and enforces the Emperor's will. She is efficient and ruthless, showing no mercy to those who stand in her way. But she tells herself that she's doing good, that she's bringing order to chaos, that the people she hurts deserve it. And for a time, she believes it. By the time the Clone Wars end and the Empire solidifies its grip on the galaxy, Leia is 20 years old. She has become one of Palpatine's most trusted agents, feared and respected throughout the Imperial hierarchy. And then the Emperor gives her a new assignment, one that will test her loyalty like never before. You will become Governor of Alderaan. Leia's heart skips a beat. Alderaan, her homeworld, the place she was taken from all those years ago. Why there, my master? Because the rebellion is growing, and Alderaan is one of its key supporters. Your adoptive father, Bail Organa, has been funding them in secret. I want you to root out the traitors and crush the rebellion's presence on that world. Leia hesitates for only a moment. And my parents? What of them? They will be dealt with as the law requires. If they are found guilty of treason, they will be executed, unless you can convince them to cooperate. Leia's jaw tightens. She hasn't seen her parents in 15 years. She barely remembers them. And yet, the thought of returning to Alderaan stirs something in her chest, something she thought she'd buried long ago. I will not fail you, Master. Good. See that you don't. Alderaan is crucial to the Empire's stability. Do not let sentiment cloud your judgment. Leia bows and leaves the throne room. As she walks through the corridors of the palace, her mind races. She tells herself that this is just another mission, that her parents are traitors who deserve punishment. But deep down, in a place she doesn't want to acknowledge, she feels a flicker of doubt. The journey to Alderaan is long, and Leia spends it preparing. She reviews intelligence reports on the planet's political landscape. She studies the known rebel sympathizers and their connections, and she thinks about what she will say to her parents when she sees them again. The shuttle descends through Alderaan's atmosphere, and Leia looks out the viewport at the green fields and blue lakes below. It's beautiful, more beautiful than she remembers. For a moment, she feels a pang of something that might be nostalgia, but she pushes it aside. She has a job to do. The shuttle lands at the palace, and Leia steps out onto the landing pad. A delegation is waiting for her, including Bail and Breha Organa. They're older now, their faces lined with age and worry, but when they see Leia, their expressions shift to shock and hope. Leia? Breha takes a step forward, tears streaming down her face. Is that really you? Leia's expression is cold and impassive. Governor Organa, I am here on official business. Bail's face falls. Leia, please, we're your parents. We've missed you so much. We've been trying to find you for years. Leia feels something twist in her chest, but she forces it down. You are not my parents. You were my guardians, and you failed in your duty. I am the Emperor's apprentice now, and I am here to restore order to this world. Breha sobs, and Bail wraps an arm around her. Leia turns away and gestures to her troops. Secure the palace. I want a full sweep for any rebel activity. As the stormtroopers march past, Leia walks into the palace. She once called home. The halls are familiar, but they feel like a dream. A memory of someone else's life. She's shown to the throne room, where the planetary council is assembled. They look at her with a mix of fear and defiance. Leia stands before them, her hand resting on her lightsaber. I am Governor Leia, appointed by Emperor Palpatine to oversee this world. It has come to the Empire's attention that Alderaan has been harboring rebel sympathizers and providing them with aid. This ends now. A councillor rises, his voice shaking. We are a peaceful world. We have no quarrel with the Empire. Leia's gaze is icy. Then, you will have no problem cooperating. I want a full list of all individuals suspected of rebel activity, any resources that have been sent to the rebellion, and any communications with known rebel leaders. You have 24 hours to comply. The councillors exchange nervous glances. Bail stands, his voice steady despite his fear. And if we refuse, then I will extract the information by force. And those who resist will be made examples of. The room falls silent. Leia turns and leaves, her robes billowing behind her. That night, she stands alone in her new quarters, staring out the window at the mountains in the distance. She remembers playing in those mountains as a child, climbing trees and chasing butterflies. It feels like a lifetime ago. There's a knock at the door, and Breha enters. She's hesitant, as if afraid Leia might strike her down. Leia doesn't turn around. What do you want? I wanted to see you, to talk to you. You're not the little girl I remember. Leia's voice is flat. That girl is gone. Breha takes a step closer. What did they do to you? What did the Emperor do to make you like this? Leia finally turns to face her. He taught me the truth. He showed me what the Republic really was. A broken, corrupt system that failed the galaxy. And he taught me to be strong, to take action instead of hiding behind meaningless words. Breha's face crumples. We tried to teach you compassion, love, justice. You threw that away for power. Leia's eyes flash with anger. I threw away naivety. You wanted me to believe in a fantasy, but the galaxy doesn't work that way. The strong survive. The weak are crushed, and I refuse to be weak. Breha steps forward and reaches out, touching Leia's cheek. My daughter, you're still in there. I know you are. Leia pulls away, her voice cold. I am not your daughter. Now leave. Before I have you arrested for treason. Breha's hand drops, and she nods slowly. As you wish. She leaves, and Leia is alone again. She tells herself that she feels nothing, that the encounter didn't affect her. But her hands are shaking, and she grips the edge of the table to steady herself. Over the following days, Leia begins her work. She interrogates suspected rebel sympathizers, using the Force to probe their minds and extract information. She's efficient and ruthless, showing no mercy. Some of the people she questions are old family friends, people who knew her as a child. They beg her to remember, to show compassion, but she doesn't. She can't. Because if she allows herself to feel, she's afraid she'll break. One day, she captures a young woman named Kira, a childhood friend who joined the rebellion. Kira is brought to Leia's office in chains, her face bruised and defiant. Leia dismisses the guards and stands before her former friend. Kira, "It's been a long time." Kira spits at her feet. "You're a traitor, a monster." Leia's expression doesn't change. "I'm a realist. You're fighting for a lost cause, Kira. The rebellion will fail. It always does." Kira glares at her. "The Leia I knew would never have said that. The Leia I knew cared about people, about justice." Leia leans down, her face inches from Kira's. "The Leia you knew was a child. I've grown up, and I've learned that justice is a lie. There is only power, and those who wield it." Kira's defiance wavers, and tears spill down her cheeks. "What happened to you?" Leia straightens and turns away. "I woke up." She gestures to the guards. "Take her to the detention center. She'll be tried for treason." As Kira is dragged away, Leia sits at her desk and stares at the data pad in front of her. She tells herself that she's doing the right thing, that she's protecting the galaxy. But a small voice in the back of her mind whispers that she's become exactly what she once feared. She silences it and continues her work. The next few weeks are a blur of interrogations, arrests, and executions. Leia's efficiency is remarkable, and the rebel presence on Alderaan begins to crumble under her relentless assault. But with each person she hurts, the weight on her chest grows heavier. She starts having nightmares, dreams of the people she's killed, their faces twisted in agony, dreams of her childhood, playing in the palace gardens with Kira and others who are now dead or imprisoned because of her. She wakes up in cold sweats, her heart pounding, and tells herself it's just stress, that it will pass once the mission is complete. But deep down, she knows the truth. She's losing herself. One evening, as she reviews intelligence reports in her office, an alert comes through. A rebel cell is planning an attack on an Imperial supply depot on the outskirts of the capital. Leia immediately mobilizes her forces, determined to crush them before they can strike. She leads the assault personally, her red lightsaber blazing as she cuts through the rebel fighters. They're outnumbered and outgunned, but they fight with a desperation that surprises her. These aren't hardened soldiers. They're farmers, teachers, ordinary people driven to violence by desperation. For a moment, she hesitates, but then she remembers Palpatine's teachings. Sentiment is weakness. She channels the Force and unleashes a wave of energy that sends them flying. The battle is over in minutes, and the survivors are rounded up for interrogation. As Leia walks through the wreckage, she sees a young girl, no more than 10 years old, hiding behind a crate. The girl's eyes are wide with terror, and she's clutching a blaster that's too big for her hands. Leia stops, staring at the child. For a moment, she sees herself at that age, frightened and alone, torn from her home. The girl raises the blaster, her hands shaking. "Stay back! I'll shoot!" Leia could disarm her with a thought. She could kill her just as easily. But instead, she deactivates her lightsaber and kneels down. "You don't want to do that." The girl's finger trembles on the trigger. "You killed my brother. He was just trying to help people, and you killed him." Leia's chest tightens. "Where is your family?" The girl's face crumples. "Dead. You killed them. All of them." Leia feels something crack inside her. She reaches out with the Force, gently pulling the blaster from the girl's hands. "I'm sorry." The girl collapses, sobbing. Leia stands and signals to one of her officers. "Take her somewhere safe. Make sure she's cared for." The officer looks confused. "Ma'am, she's a rebel sympathizer." Leia's voice is sharp. "She's a child. Do as I say." The officer nods and leads the girl away. Leia watches them go, her mind reeling. What is she doing? How many children has she orphaned? How many families has she destroyed? She tells herself it's for the greater good. That order requires sacrifice. But the words feel hollow now. That night, she stands in her quarters, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She barely recognizes herself. Her eyes are hard and cold, her expression distant. This isn't who she wanted to be, but she doesn't know how to stop. Palpatine's influence runs deep. His teachings woven into every thought, every action. She's trapped in a prison of her own making, and she doesn't know how to escape. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Luke Skywalker's journey begins. On Tatooine, he's living the same monotonous life he's lived for years, working on his uncle's moisture farm. But everything changes when he encounters a droid carrying a message. The hologram shows a woman in white robes, her face desperate. "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." Luke doesn't know who this woman is, but something about the message calls to him. When his uncle forbids him from investigating, he sneaks away, following the droid into the Dune Sea. There, he's attacked by Tusken raiders. But before they can kill him, an old hermit appears. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the last of the Jedi. Obi-Wan takes Luke to his home and tells him the truth about his father. Anakin Skywalker was a Jedi Knight, one of the greatest of his time, but he fell to the dark side and became Darth Vader. Luke is stunned. His whole life, he thought his father was a navigator on a spice freighter. Now he learns he's the son of a monster. But Obi-Wan isn't finished. There's more, Luke. You have a twin sister. She was taken by the Empire when you were both infants. I've tried to find her, but all traces of her have disappeared. I fear she's been lost to the dark side, just as your father was. Luke's heart races. A sister? I have to find her. I have to save her. Obi-Wan's expression is grave. The path you're considering is dangerous. Your sister, if she's still alive, may be beyond saving. The Emperor has a way of breaking those he takes, molding them into tools of his will. But Luke refuses to accept that. I don't care how dangerous it is. She's my sister. I have to try. Obi-Wan sighs, recognizing the determination in Luke's eyes. It's the same determination his father once had. Very well, I will train you in the ways of the Force. But you must understand, the road ahead is long and perilous, and you may not like what you find at the end of it. Luke's training begins in earnest. Obi-Wan teaches him to sense the Force, to move objects with his mind, to fight with a lightsaber. Luke is a natural, his instincts sharp, and his connection to the Force strong. But he's also impatient, always pushing himself harder, always wanting to do more. He wants to be ready to face whatever lies ahead, ready to save his sister. Obi-Wan tries to temper his enthusiasm, teaching him patience and control. But Luke is driven by a singular purpose. He knows his sister is out there, somewhere, and he won't rest until he finds her. When the opportunity arises to join the rebellion, Luke doesn't hesitate. He sees it as a way to fight the Empire and, hopefully, find his sister. He proves himself quickly, his piloting skills and Force abilities making him a valuable asset. And when the rebels plan an attack on the Death Star, Luke volunteers without hesitation. The battle is intense, and the odds are against them. But Luke trusts in the Force, letting it guide him as he flies through the trench. He hears Obi-Wan's voice in his mind, calm and steady. Trust your instincts, Luke. Let go. And he does. He fires, and the torpedoes streak into the Death Star's exhaust port. The station explodes in a brilliant flash of light, and the rebellion has its first major victory. Luke becomes a hero overnight, his name spreading across the galaxy. But he doesn't care about fame or glory. All he cares about is finding his sister. He asks everyone he meets if they've heard of a young woman strong in the Force, working for the Empire. Most shake their heads, but a few mention rumors. A governor on Alderaan, ruthless and efficient. They say she carries a red lightsaber and answers directly to the Emperor. Luke's heart sinks. Could that be her? His sister? Working for the enemy? He refuses to believe it. There has to be an explanation. She must be a prisoner, forced to serve against her will. He vows to find her and bring her back to the light. Meanwhile, on Alderaan, Leia hears about the destruction of the Death Star. The news sends shockwaves through the Empire, and Palpatine is furious. He summons Leia to Coruscant, and she arrives expecting punishment. But instead, the Emperor has a new assignment for her. There is a boy, Luke Skywalker. He destroyed the Death Star and has become a symbol of hope for the rebellion. He is strong in the Force, and he is becoming a problem. I want you to find him, Leia. Capture him if you can. Kill him if you must. Leia nods, her mind already working. She's heard the name before. Luke Skywalker, son of Anakin Skywalker, which means he's the son of Darth Vader. But she doesn't know about the connection between them, doesn't know that they share the same blood. She begins her hunt, using her extensive intelligence network to track Luke's movements. And she learns that the rebels are planning a mission on Alderaan, a rescue operation to free prisoners held in her fortress. Leia smiles. Perfect, let them come. She'll be ready. She sets the trap carefully, moving the prisoners to a different location and filling the cells with sensors and hidden turrets. When the rebels arrive, they'll walk right into her hands, and their precious hero will be captured or killed. The night of the mission arrives, and Leia waits in the shadows of the detention center. Her lightsaber is at her side, and her senses are attuned to the Force. She feels them before she sees them. A group of rebels, moving through the corridors with practiced stealth, and at their center, a bright presence in the Force, Luke Skywalker. She lets them reach the cells, lets them realize the trap, and then she steps out, her red blade igniting with a hiss. The rebels freeze, their weapons trained on her, but Leia only has eyes for Luke. He's young, maybe a year or two younger than her. He has sandy blonde hair and blue eyes that burn with determination. And when he looks at her, something flickers in his expression. Recognition? No, that's impossible. They've never met. So, you're the great hope of the rebellion. Luke's jaw tightens, and he ignites his own lightsaber. The blue blade contrasts sharply with her red one. And you're the Emperor's lapdog. I've heard about you, Governor Leia, the butcher of Alderaan. Leia's expression doesn't change, though something about his words stings. I prefer strategist, but if you want to fight, I won't stop you. The other rebels scatter, engaging the stormtroopers that flood the room. But Luke and Leia are focused only on each other. They circle, each sizing the other up, and then Luke attacks. His strikes are powerful but unrefined, driven by raw emotion. Leia deflects them easily, her movements precise and calculated. She's been trained by the best. She knows every form, every technique, and she uses them to her advantage. You're strong, but you lack discipline. Did no one teach you properly? Luke grits his teeth and presses harder, his strikes coming faster. But Leia sidesteps and counters, her blade grazing his shoulder. He stumbles back, and she advances, her strikes coming faster. Now, testing him, pushing him. You fight with your heart, not your head. That's your weakness. Luke blocks her attacks, but he's being driven back. He can feel her skill, her control, and it frustrates him. He reaches out with the Force, trying to push her away, but she absorbs the attack and redirects it, sending him crashing into a wall. He groans and struggles to his feet, his blue eyes blazing with defiance. Leia stands over him, her lightsaber pointed at his throat. Yield. Luke glares at her, his voice steady despite his pain. Never. Leia raises her blade, ready to strike. But then she pauses. There's something about this boy, something familiar. She can't explain it, but it makes her hesitate. And in that moment of hesitation, the room trembles. A presence enters, heavy and oppressive, filling the space like a physical weight. Darth Vader. He strides in, his massive form casting long shadows in the flickering light. His red blade ignites with a snap hiss, and both Luke and Leia turn to face him. Both of you, stop. Luke pushes himself to his feet, his lightsaber still active, his body tense and ready to fight. What are you talking about? Vader stands between them, his mechanical breathing the only sound in the sudden silence. He reaches out with the Force, touching their essences, probing the connection he's felt building for weeks, and the truth crashes over him like a tidal wave, undeniable and overwhelming. You are my son. His mask turns to Luke. And she is my daughter. His gaze shifts to Leia. The words hang in the air, impossible and devastating. Luke's face goes pale, his lightsaber wavering. What? That's not possible. You killed my father, Obi-Wan told me. Vader's voice is heavy, with a regret that cuts through the mechanical filter. Obi-Wan told you what he believed to be true from a certain point of view. But I am Anakin Skywalker. I fell to the dark side, and I became this. And your mother, Padme Amidala, died because of my actions, because of what I became. Leia's lightsaber lowers, her hand trembling. Her voice is barely a whisper. You're lying. This is some kind of trick. Vader shakes his head slowly. I do not lie, Leia. Not about this. I can feel it in the Force. The connection between us. You are both my children. Leia stares at him, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. She's spent her entire life being molded by Palpatine, being told that she was special, that she was destined for greatness. But it was all built on lies. Vader is her father, the monster who serves the Emperor, and the rebel hero she was sent to kill. The boy standing across from her with his blue lightsaber is her brother. The realization is too much. Her lightsaber drops from her hand, clattering to the floor with a metallic ring that echoes through the chamber. Luke looks at her, and for the first time, he sees past the cold exterior, past the Imperial governor, past the warrior. He sees the pain, the confusion, the fear, and he feels it too. That invisible thread binding them together, pulling at something deep inside him. The Force itself seems to hum with recognition, acknowledging the bond that's always been there, dormant but unbreakable. The room is silent, except for the distant sounds of battle, blaster fire, and shouting echoing through the corridors. And then Palpatine's voice cuts through the comm system, cold and amused, dripping with malice. How touching. A family reunion. The Emperor's hologram flickers to life in the center of the room, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. But this changes nothing, my dear children. Leia, Luke, you are both mine now. You were always meant to be mine. Together, you will rule the galaxy at my side. Or you will die together. The choice is yours. Leia's hands tremble as she stares at the hologram. She thinks of all the years she's spent serving him, all the missions, all the people she's hurt, all the lies she's been told. Her voice is barely a whisper, choked with emotion. What have I done? Luke takes a tentative step toward her, his lightsaber still active, but lowered now, non-threatening. His voice is gentle, filled with compassion rather than judgment. You didn't know. He manipulated you, twisted you, but it's not too late. You can still make the right choice. We can make it together. Leia looks up at him, tears streaming down her face, carving lines through the mask of composure she's worn for so long. How? I've done terrible things, Luke. I've hurt so many people, killed them, destroyed families. How can I possibly make that right? How can anyone forgive what I've become? Vader's voice cuts through the moment, and there's something different in it now, something almost human beneath the mechanical rasp. By making a choice, I made the wrong one, Leia. I chose power over love, the dark side over the light. And it cost me everything. My wife, my children, my humanity. Do not repeat my mistakes. You still have time to choose differently. The three of them stand together in the detention center. A broken family on the brink of something that might be redemption or might be doom. For the first time in 15 years, Leia feels something she hasn't allowed herself to feel. Hope. But there's no time to dwell on it. Palpatine's hologram flickers and shifts, his expression darkening. My dear Leia, you have served me well all these years, but I see now that your loyalty is wavering. Blood calls to blood, it seems. No matter. Lord Vader will bring you back in line. He always does. Or I will simply find another apprentice. There are always those hungry for power. Vader's fists clench at his sides, servos whining with the pressure. His voice is firm, final. No, I will not hurt my children. Not again. Never again. Palpatine's smile fades, replaced by cold fury. Then you have chosen death, my old friend. All three of you. The hologram vanishes, and immediately alarms blare throughout the fortress. Red lights flash in the corridors, and the sound of marching boots grows louder. Imperial forces converge on their location from every direction. Stormtroopers, death troopers, Imperial officers with blasters drawn. The entire garrison is mobilizing to contain them. Leia stands frozen, her mind a storm of doubt and fear, and something else. Something that feels like freedom. But then, Luke reaches out and takes her hand. His grip is warm and steady, grounding her in the moment. His blue eyes meet hers with absolute certainty. We can do this. Together, as brother and sister, as family. She looks at him, really looks at him, and something in his eyes steadies her. She sees herself reflected there, not as the monster she's become, but as someone who can still choose to be better. She nods, her jaw setting with determination, and picks up her lightsaber. The red blade ignites once more, but this time it feels different in her hand. Not a weapon of oppression, but a tool of liberation. Let's go. The three of them move as one, cutting through the fortress with devastating efficiency. Vader's presence is overwhelming, his power carving a path through their enemies like a force of nature. Stormtroopers fall before him, their armor no protection against the fury of his blade. But it's Luke and Leia who surprise each other most. Despite being on opposite sides for so long, despite never having fought together before, their movements sync perfectly. They anticipate each other's attacks, cover each other's weaknesses, move in harmony as if they've been training together their whole lives. It's as if they've been fighting together their entire lives, their connection through the Force allowing them to read each other's intentions before they even form. Luke strikes high, and Leia is already moving low. She deflects a blaster bolt, and Luke is there to follow up. They spin and weave through the corridors, their lightsabers creating a deadly dance of blue and red light. Vader watches them as they fight, and something twists in his chest. Pride, pain, regret. This is what he could have had, what he threw away when he chose the dark side. But perhaps it's not too late to make amends. Perhaps, in protecting them now, he can finally find some measure of redemption. They reach the communication hub, a massive room filled with computer terminals and holographic displays. Leia stops, her eyes scanning the equipment. She turns to her datapad and begins uploading files, her fingers flying across the interface with practiced speed. Luke looks over her shoulder, watching lines of data stream across the screen. What are you doing? Exposing him. Leia's voice is tight with determination. I've been documenting everything for years. Every order Palpatine gave, every atrocity he commanded, every lie he told. The massacres, the manipulations, the political assassinations, all of it. If we broadcast this across the galaxy, the Empire will fracture. People will see him for what he truly is. Luke nods, understanding, dawning on his face. Then let's do it. Leia hits the final command, and the files begin to transmit. Within moments, Palpatine's face appears on every screen across the galaxy, from Coruscant to the Outer Rim, on every news feed, every public display, every Imperial channel. His crimes are laid bare for all to see. The massacre of the Jedi, the manipulation of the Clone Wars, the corruption, the lies, the ruthless elimination of anyone who stood in his way. Footage plays of atrocities committed in his name, orders given in his own voice, evidence that cannot be denied or explained away. Worlds that were loyal to the Empire begin to question. Citizens who believed in the order he promised now see the truth of his tyranny. Uprisings spark on dozens of planets simultaneously. Coruscant erupts in protests. Corellia mobilizes its defense fleet. Naboo declares independence. And the carefully constructed order Palpatine built over decades starts to crumble like a house of cards in a storm. On military bases across the galaxy, Imperial officers stare at the broadcasts in shock and horror. Some continue to follow orders out of loyalty or fear. But others, the ones who joined the Empire, believing they were serving a greater good, begin to question everything. Defections start slowly, then accelerate. Entire fleets refuse to follow Imperial commands. Planets that were under Imperial control suddenly find their garrisons surrendering or simply abandoning their posts. But the Emperor is not finished. Not by a long shot. His presence descends on Alderaan like a gathering storm, dark and suffocating, and filled with an ancient, terrible power. The very air seems to grow heavy with malevolence. Leia feels him coming before she sees him, a pressure building in her skull, a darkness pressing against her mind. He's here. Her voice is tight, with barely controlled fear. Vader's response is grim, his mechanical breathing seeming to quicken. Then we end this. Now, once and for all. They make their way through the palace, cutting down the remaining Imperial forces who try to stop them. The palace guards fall back, some throwing down their weapons and fleeing rather than face the combined might of two Skywalkers and Darth Vader himself. They reach the throne room, the very place where Leia was appointed governor, where she took her oath to serve the Empire. The doors slide open with a mechanical hiss, revealing a vast chamber lit by flickering red emergency lights. And there, standing at the center of the room like a dark god, is Emperor Palpatine. His presence fills the space, oppressive and overwhelming. Dark energy crackles around him, and his eyes burn with fury that could melt Durasteel. The air itself seems to warp around him, shadows deepening, light bending away as if reality itself recoils from his presence. "You have betrayed me, Leia." His voice is soft, almost gentle, which makes it all the more terrifying. After all, I gave you power, purpose, a place in the galaxy when you had nothing. I shaped you from a frightened child into a warrior, a leader, someone who could have ruled worlds. And this is how you repay me? With treachery and ingratitude? Leia ignites her lightsaber, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. You gave me nothing but lies. Everything I am, everything I've done, was built on your manipulation. You took a child and twisted her into a monster. But that ends now. I'm taking back control of my own life. Palpatine's laugh is cold and mirthless, echoing through the chamber like the rattle of bones. You think you have control? You think you've broken free? Foolish child, you are still mine. Every lesson I taught you, every skill you possess, came from me. You cannot escape what you are, what I made you. Luke steps forward, his blue blade glowing defiantly in the darkness. His voice rings out with conviction. We're not your tools anymore. Not her, not me, not my father. We're family, and we're going to stop you. Palpatine's smile fades, replaced by an expression of pure malevolence. His face contorts with rage, the scars on his face seeming to deepen in the shadows. Very well. If you will not serve me, if you will not bow to the natural order of power and submission, then you will die together, and I will find others more worthy of my gifts. He raises his hands, fingers splayed like claws, and lightning erupts from his fingertips. Not the measured bolts he's used before, but a torrent of raw electrical energy that screams through the air like the fury of a vengeful god. The three of them scatter, diving behind pillars and debris as the bolts scorch the floor where they stood. Stone melts under the assault. Metal warps and glows red-hot. The very air crackles with energy. Luke rushes forward first, his strikes wild but powerful, driven by righteous anger and determination. His blue blade cuts through the darkness, seeking the Emperor's heart. But Palpatine deflects him easily, his movements impossibly fast for someone who appears so old and frail. He seems to blur, to be in multiple places at once, his crimson lightsaber appearing in his hand as if summoned from thin air. He counters with a blast of pure force energy that sends Luke crashing into a pillar with bone-jarring force. Stone cracks and splinters under the impact. Luke crumples to the ground, gasping for breath, his lightsaber rolling away across the floor. Vader advances next, his red blade clashing with Palpatine's in a brutal duel that shakes the very foundations of the palace. The two Sith Lords engage in combat that transcends normal fighting, their lightsabers moving in blurs of crimson light, each strike carrying enough force to shatter stone. This is personal now. Master against apprentice, the one who taught and the one who learned. Decades of shared history, of twisted loyalty, of master and slave, all coming to a head in this moment. But Palpatine is faster, his connection to the dark side deeper and more complete. He's had centuries to perfect his craft, to delve into secrets of the Force that others can barely comprehend. He drives Vader back with a series of lightning-fast strikes, each one probing for weakness, testing defenses. Then, he finds his opening. His blade slashes across Vader's chest plate with a screech of metal on metal. Sparks fly from the damaged armor in a shower of light, and smoke rises from the rent in the life support systems. Vader staggers, his breathing growing labored and irregular, and collapses to one knee. Leia watches, her heart pounding so hard she can hear it in her ears, feel it in her throat. She sees Luke struggling to rise, one hand clutching his ribs where the impact cracked them. She sees Vader weakening, his massive form hunched and vulnerable for the first time she can remember. And she realizes with crystal clarity that this is her moment. Everything she's learned, every tactical lesson burned into her mind over years of training, every manipulation technique, every ounce of cunning and strategic thinking, it all comes down to this single moment. She doesn't attack head-on. That's what Palpatine expects, what he's prepared for. Instead, she reaches out with the Force, extending her awareness, probing his defenses like a surgeon looking for the perfect incision point. She finds his arrogance first, that absolute certainty that he's already won, that no one can possibly defeat him. It's his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. And she exploits it without mercy. She feints left, drawing his attention, making him track her movement. And in that split second of distraction, she uses the Force to hurl debris at him from behind. Not just random objects, but structural supports, pieces of the ceiling, huge chunks of stone and metal that would crush a normal person. Palpatine deflects them with casual waves of his hand, not even turning to look, his smile widening. "Is that the best you can do, child?" But the distraction is enough. Luke surges forward, drawing on reserves of strength he didn't know he had. His saber cuts through Palpatine's defenses, scoring a glancing blow across his shoulder. The Emperor snarls in pain and fury, and unleashes another wave of lightning, this one more powerful than before. It arcs through the air like the wrath of ancient gods, seeking to obliterate them all. But Leia is ready. She's been studying his techniques for years, watching, learning, preparing for this moment without even knowing it. She channels the Force, creating a barrier that absorbs the attack. The energy crashes against her defenses like waves against a seawall, and she feels it trying to tear through to reach her flesh and bone. The effort drains her catastrophically. She can feel the dark side clawing at her, trying to consume her from within. Dark veins creep up her arms like spreading poison, pulsing with malevolent energy. Her vision blurs, the edges going dark. Her knees threaten to buckle. Every cell in her body screams in agony. But she holds the barrier. She has to. Her family depends on it. "Luke, now. Do it now." Luke drives his saber forward with all his strength. But Palpatine twists aside at the last possible second with inhuman reflexes. He raises his hand, preparing to obliterate them all, to reduce them to ash and memory. Dark energy gathers around him, coalescing into something terrible and absolute. But Vader rises, bloodied and broken, his armor sparking and failing, his breathing a tortured rasp. He lunges at his former master. One final time, he grabs Palpatine from behind, his mechanical arms locking around the Emperor's torso with unbreakable force. Palpatine screams in rage and betrayal, his lightning arcing wildly in every direction. It tears through Vader's body without mercy, frying circuits, burning flesh, destroying what little remained of Anakin Skywalker's physical form. But the Dark Lord doesn't let go. His grip is absolute, final. The action of a man who knows he's already dead, but refuses to die alone. "Leia, end this. Now." His voice is weaker than before, fading. "Do what I could not. Save the galaxy I helped destroy." Leia doesn't hesitate. She can't afford to. She charges forward, her red blade flashing in the strobing light of Palpatine's lightning. She sees the opening, the perfect strike, and she takes it without mercy. She drives her lightsaber through Palpatine's chest, through his heart, through the core of his being. The blade erupts from his back in a spray of dark energy, The Emperor's scream echoes through the Force itself, a wave of pure darkness that ripples outward across the galaxy. Every Force-sensitive being feels it, a moment of pure agony and rage and disbelief. The scream tears through the palace, through Alderaan, through the very fabric of space itself. Dark energy explodes outward, shattering windows, cracking walls, sending everyone in the room flying backward. And then, silence. Absolute, deafening silence. Palpatine's body crumbles to ash, disintegrating like ancient parchment exposed to flame. The oppressive weight of his presence lifts, the shadows recede, and suddenly the room feels larger, the air cleaner. Light streams through the broken windows for the first time in what feels like forever. Leia stumbles back, her lightsaber clattering to the floor. She looks at her hands, still trembling with the residual energy of the dark side. The veins on her arms are fading now, slowly returning to normal, but she can still feel the echo of that power, that corruption. It terrified her how easy it was to use, how natural it felt. Vader collapses, his massive form crashing to the floor with a sound like thunder. His breathing is labored and irregular, the life support systems failing one by one with pathetic electronic whines. Luke rushes to his side, dropping to his knees and cradling Vader's helmet in his hands. "Father, hold on. We'll get you help. We can fix this." Vader's hand reaches up, trembling, and touches Luke's face with surprising gentleness. His voice is so weak now, barely audible over the failing respirator. "You were right about me, Luke. Tell your sister. Tell Leia. You were both right. The light was always there. I just couldn't see it through the darkness." Luke's eyes fill with tears that stream down his face unchecked. "No, you're going to be okay. We're going to get you medical attention. The Empire's best doctors will fix the suit, repair the damage. You're not dying here. Not now. Not after everything." Vader shakes his head slowly, each movement seeming to cost him enormous effort. "It's too late for me. The damage is too extensive. My body was more machine than man, and those machines are failing. But I'm glad, so glad I could see you both. Together, as family, as you were always meant to be." Leia kneels beside them, her own voice breaking with emotion she can no longer contain. "I'm sorry for everything, for serving him so long, for hurting so many people. I should have seen through his lies sooner. I should have questioned, should have resisted. This is all my fault." Vader's hand reaches out, and with the last of his strength, he touches her cheek with a tenderness that seems impossible from such a figure of terror. His voice is barely a whisper now. "You were strong, Leia, stronger than I ever was. You chose the light when it mattered most. When I failed, you succeeded, and you chose right. That's all that matters. That's all that ever matters." With trembling hands, Luke removes the helmet, the seals hissing as they release. For the first time, Leia sees her father's face, not the mask of Vader, but Anakin Skywalker. His face is scarred and pale, ravaged by years of darkness. Like hers, would be without the influence of the dark side. And in those eyes, for the first time in decades, there's peace. "Be better than me," he whispers, his gaze moving between his children. "Both of you. Don't let the darkness win. Don't let fear and anger consume you like they consumed me. Choose love. Always choose love. His eyes close slowly, peacefully, like a man finally allowed to rest after an impossibly long and painful journey. His breathing stops. The mechanical wheeze that has defined him for so long falls silent. And Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight, becomes one with the Force. Luke and Leia sit in silence, holding their father's hands as the first rays of true dawn break through the shattered windows of the throne room. Outside, the galaxy is in chaos. The broadcast has done its work. Systems are rebelling everywhere. Imperial warlords are scrambling for power, fighting among themselves. And the rebellion, now bolstered by defecting Imperials and systems declaring independence, is surging forward, taking advantage of the confusion. But in this moment, all that matters is the two siblings, finally reunited after a lifetime apart, mourning the father they barely knew and the childhood that was stolen from them. Days pass in a blur of activity. The battle for Alderaan ends as Imperial forces either surrender or flee. The rebels begin to regroup, tending to their wounded and securing the planet. Leia stands in the ruins of the throne room, staring at the place where Palpatine died, where her father died, where everything changed. The scorch marks on the floor, the shattered pillars, the ash staining the stones. She feels empty, hollowed out. Everything she believed in for 15 years is gone, revealed as lies and manipulation. And she doesn't know who she is anymore without those beliefs to define her. Luke finds her there, his presence a quiet comfort even before he speaks. He's limping slightly, his ribs still healing, but he's alive. They both are. That has to count for something. How are you holding up? Leia doesn't look at him, her eyes fixed on the scorch marks. I don't know. I spent my entire life serving him, believing in his vision of order, of strength, and now he's gone. And I realize I don't know who I am anymore. Everything I was, everything I did, it was all built on lies. How do I come back from that? How does anyone? Luke steps beside her, his shoulder nearly touching hers. His voice is gentle, understanding, completely without judgment. You're my sister, and you're a hero. You stopped him when it mattered most. You chose the light when you could have chosen darkness. That takes more strength than anything else. Leia shakes her head, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. I'm not a hero, Luke. Heroes don't do what I did. I've hurt people, killed people, destroyed families, orphaned children. I did things that can never be undone, inflicted pain that can never be healed. How can I possibly make up for that? How can anyone forgive what I've become? Luke's voice remains steady, filled with a conviction she wishes she could share. By doing better, by helping rebuild what was broken, by dedicating the rest of your life to making things right. It won't be easy. It might be the hardest thing you ever do. And people won't forgive you overnight. Some may never forgive you at all, but you have the chance to make things right, to atone for your mistakes. That's more than most people get. That's more than our father got until the very end. Leia looks at him, really looks at him, and she sees no judgment in his eyes. Only compassion, only family. Why are you being so kind to me? After everything I've done, after I tried to kill you, After I served the man who destroyed our family? Luke smiles. And it's so genuine. It makes her heart ache because you're family. Because I lost you once, and I'm not losing you again. And because I believe in you, I felt your presence in the Force, Leia. Beneath all the darkness Palpatine forced on you, beneath all the pain and anger and fear, there's light. There always has been. You just need to let yourself see it. The words break something inside her. Some last wall of resistance she's been maintaining. She collapses into his arms, sobbing like the child she was when she was taken. Luke holds her, letting her grieve for the life she lost, for the person she became, for all the pain she caused, and all the innocence she can never reclaim. And slowly, held in her brother's embrace, she begins to heal. The next few weeks are a whirlwind of activity and change. The rebellion transitions into the new republic, holding emergency sessions to establish a new government. Systems across the galaxy begin to declare their independence from the Empire. But the fight is far from over. Imperial warlords still hold vast territories. Remnants of Palpatine's forces regroup under new leaders, and the galaxy teeters on the brink of chaos. It needs strong leadership to navigate this transition. People who understand both the old empire and the new hope. Leia knows that the galaxy needs leadership now more than ever. And despite her past, despite the blood on her hands and the weight of her crimes, she's determined to be part of the solution. She owes it to everyone she's hurt. She owes it to herself. She stands before the newly formed Galactic Senate, her hands clasped behind her back to hide their trembling. The chamber is packed with senators, representatives from hundreds of worlds, all of whom have heard stories about her, about Governor Leia, about the Emperor's apprentice, about the Butcher of Alderaan. They stare at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Fear, anger, suspicion. She doesn't blame them for any of it. She deserves far worse than their stares. My name is Leia Organa. Her voice carries through the chamber, steady despite her nerves. Some of you know me as Governor Leia, the Emperor's apprentice. His hand, his weapon. I have done terrible things in his name. I have hurt people, killed people, destroyed families, and crushed hope wherever I found it. I believed I was bringing order, but I was only spreading pain. And I cannot undo the past. I cannot bring back the dead or heal the wounds I've inflicted. But I stand before you today to offer my skills, my knowledge, and my complete dedication to help rebuild what was destroyed. I know the Empire's inner workings better than almost anyone. I know their strategies, their weaknesses, their contingency plans. And I will use that knowledge to ensure that we never fall into tyranny again. I will dedicate the rest of my life to making amends. I ask not for forgiveness, because I don't deserve it. I ask only for the chance to serve the galaxy I nearly helped destroy. The room is silent for a long, agonizing moment. Leia can feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on her, threatening to crush her. She's prepared for them to reject her, to call for her arrest and trial. Part of her wants them to. At least then there would be justice. Then, slowly, deliberately, Mon Mothma rises from her seat. She looks older than Leia remembers, her face lined with exhaustion and the weight of leadership. But her eyes are clear and her voice is steady. I knew you as a child, Leia, before you were taken from us. I watched you play in the palace gardens on Alderaan. I saw the compassion in your eyes, the intelligence, the potential for greatness. And I have seen the horrors you committed under Palpatine's rule. I've read the reports, seen the evidence, spoken with survivors who will carry the scars of your actions forever. I do not forgive you. I cannot speak for those you've hurt, but I believe in second chances. I believe that people can change, that they can choose to be better than they were. You exposed the Emperor's crimes at great personal risk. You fought alongside the rebellion when you could have remained loyal to the Empire, and you helped end his reign of terror. If you are willing to work for redemption, to earn back the trust you destroyed, then the New Republic will accept your help. But know this, you will be watched, scrutinized, judged for every action. And if you falter, if you show any sign of returning to your old ways, there will be no mercy. Do you accept these terms? Leia bows her head, tears of relief and gratitude stinging her eyes. Yes, I accept. I understand completely, and I would expect nothing less. I will prove myself worthy of this chance, or I will die trying. Applause ripples through the chamber, hesitant at first, but growing stronger. It's not universal. Many senators remain silent, their expressions skeptical or hostile. But it's a start. It's more than she dared hope for. Over the following months, Leia throws herself into the work of rebuilding with an intensity that borders on obsession. She barely sleeps, barely eats, driven by a desperate need to atone for her past. She uses her political skills to broker peace agreements between warring factions, bringing together groups who have been enemies for generations. She helps draft the New Republic's constitution, ensuring that the checks and balances she wished had existed in the Empire are codified into law. She works tirelessly to hunt down the remaining Imperial warlords, using her intimate knowledge of their tactics to outmaneuver them at every turn. But it's not easy, not even close. Every day is a struggle against her own guilt and the suspicion of others. She walks through the halls of the New Republic and sees people flinch when she passes. She hears whispers behind her back. Monster, murderer, butcher. And the worst part is, they're right. Every accusation is justified. Every hateful look is deserved. Some nights, she wakes up screaming, her mind trapped in nightmares of the things she's done. She sees the faces of the people she killed, hears their pleas for mercy that she ignored, feels the weight of every life she destroyed pressing down on her chest until she can't breathe. She sees Kira, her childhood friend, being dragged away to execution. She sees the young girl whose brother she killed, whose family she destroyed. She sees hundreds, thousands of faces, all accusing her, all demanding justice she can never give them. Luke is always there on those nights, sensing her distress through the Force, even from across the city. He sits with her, not saying anything at first, just being present. Eventually, he speaks, his voice calm and steady in the darkness. It gets easier, not quickly, and never completely, but it gets easier. You're not alone in this, Leia. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. His presence helps more than she can express. He becomes her anchor, the one person who sees her not as the monster she was, but as the person she's trying to become. He helps her navigate the guilt and the pain, teaching her the ways of the Force that Palpatine never showed her. Balance, compassion, forgiveness, not just of others, but of herself. And slowly, painfully, Leia begins to find peace. She starts meditation practices that Luke teaches her, learning to quiet the voices of her past victims, to acknowledge their pain without being consumed by it. She begins to understand that punishing herself endlessly won't bring them back, won't undo the damage. Only action can do that. Only dedicating herself to making the galaxy better can honor their memory. One of her first major initiatives is returning to the worlds she ravaged as governor. She starts with Alderaan, but there are others. Corellia, where she crushed a workers' uprising with brutal efficiency. Ryloth, where she hunted down rebel sympathizers and left entire communities in ruins. Lothal, where she personally oversaw interrogations that left families broken. She goes to each one, not in secret, but publicly, and she faces the people she hurt. On Corellia, she stands before a crowd of thousands, many of whom lost loved ones because of her orders. They jeer and throw things. Rotten fruit splatters against her clothes. Someone throws a rock that cuts her forehead. Blood trickling down her face. She doesn't wipe it away. She doesn't hide behind bodyguards or force powers. She just stands there and takes it because she deserves it and more. "My name is Leia Organa," she says, when the crowd finally quiets. "I was governor under Emperor Palpatine. I gave the orders that killed your loved ones. I destroyed your homes. I crushed your dreams of freedom, and I cannot undo any of it. I cannot bring back the dead. I cannot heal the wounds I inflicted, but I can promise you this. I will spend the rest of my life working to make things right." The New Republic is establishing a victims' fund, using seized Imperial assets to provide compensation to families affected by Imperial atrocities. I'm donating my entire salary to that fund. We're creating truth and reconciliation commissions where survivors can tell their stories and see justice done. And I'm here, in person, to answer for my crimes. If you want me arrested and tried, I'll submit to that judgment. If you want me to leave and never return, I'll respect that choice. But if you'll let me, I want to help rebuild what I destroyed. The crowd is silent for a long moment. Then, an old woman steps forward. Her face is weathered, and her eyes are hard. "You killed my son." She spits the words like venom. "He was trying to organize a peaceful protest, and you had him shot in the streets like an animal." My grandson watched his father die. Leia's throat tightens, but she doesn't look away. I remember. His name was Aren Tal. He was 32 years old. He had 3 children. And you're right. I gave the order to suppress that protest. I told myself it was necessary to maintain order, but it wasn't. It was murder. And I'm sorry. The apology sounds so inadequate, so pathetic compared to the magnitude of what she's done. The old woman stares at her for a long time, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. Then she speaks again, her voice softer but no less pained. "My grandson asks about you. He sees you on the news, working with the New Republic, and he asks me if people can change. If someone who does terrible things can become good again." Leia's voice is barely a whisper. "What do you tell him?" The old woman's expression is complicated, filled with grief and anger, but also something that might be the beginning of understanding. I tell him I don't know, but I'm watching you to find out. Show me. Show all of us. Prove that change is possible. Because If you can't, then there's no hope for any of us. The encounter shakes Leia to her core, but it also strengthens her resolve. She continues her work with renewed determination, visiting more worlds, facing more victims, making more promises she's desperate to keep. She establishes relief programs, funds reconstruction efforts, creates systems for restorative justice that focus on healing rather than pure punishment. Luke watches her work herself to exhaustion and worries. One evening, he finds her in her office, surrounded by data pads and holographic displays, looking like she hasn't slept in days. You need to rest. Leia doesn't look up from her work. I can't. There's too much to do. Too many people still suffering because of me. Every moment I rest is a moment I'm not fixing what I broke. Luke sits down across from her, his expression concerned. You can't fix everything. You can't save everyone. And you're going to burn yourself out trying. Leia finally looks up, and her eyes are haunted. I have to try, Luke. Don't you understand? Every person I help is one less person suffering because of my actions. Every world I help rebuild is proof that I'm not that person anymore. If I stop, if I slow down, then what am I? Just a monster waiting to show her true face again. Luke reaches across the desk and takes her hand. You're my sister. You're a person trying to do better. And that's enough. You don't have to earn your right to exist, Leia. You don't have to suffer for the rest of your life to prove you've changed. Yes, you did terrible things. Yes, you need to make amends. But you're also allowed to heal. You're allowed to forgive yourself. His words hit her like a physical blow, and suddenly she's crying. Great heaving sobs that rack her entire body. Luke comes around the desk and holds her while she falls apart, whispering reassurances that she's not sure she believes, but desperately wants to. It takes time, months, and then years. But slowly, the galaxy begins to heal. The New Republic stabilizes, establishing itself as a legitimate government. Imperial warlords are defeated or brought into the fold through negotiation. Trade routes reopen. Reconstruction begins on worlds devastated by war, and Leia is at the center of it all, working tirelessly to build something better than what came before. She returns to Alderaan regularly, and each time the reception is warmer. Bail and Breha welcome her with open arms, never once holding her past against her. We never stopped loving you, Breha tells her one evening as they walk through the palace gardens where Leia played as a child. We never stopped believing that the little girl we raised was still in there somewhere. And we were right. Leia stops walking, looking at the woman who raised her. How can you forgive me so easily? After everything I did? After I rejected you and threatened you and served the man who wanted to destroy everything you stood for? Breha's smile is sad, but genuine. Because you're our daughter, not by blood, but by choice. We chose to love you when you were placed in our arms as a baby. We chose to love you when you were taken from us. We chose to love you when you served the Empire. And we choose to love you now. That's what family does. Family never stops choosing love. The words break something in Leia that's been held rigid for years. She falls into Breha's arms, and for the first time since she was 5 years old, she lets herself be a daughter again. Not a warrior, not a politician, not a weapon, just a daughter loved unconditionally by her parents. Bail joins them, wrapping his arms around both women. "We're so proud of you, Leia. Not for what you've accomplished, though that's remarkable, but for the courage it took to change, to admit you were wrong, and choose a different path. That takes more strength than anything else." Over time, Leia and Luke develop a deep bond. They train together, with Luke teaching her his philosophy of the Force. He's establishing a Jedi Academy on Yavin 4, and his approach is radically different from the old Jedi Order. "I've read the old texts," he tells her one day as they meditate together in the temple ruins. "The old Jedi forbade attachment. They thought emotion led to the dark side. But I think they were wrong. It's not emotion that's dangerous. It's how we handle it. Fear can make us cautious and wise, or it can make us cruel. Anger can drive us to fight injustice, or it can consume us. Love can inspire us to greatness, or it can blind us to reality. The key is balance." Leia opens her eyes, considering his words. "Palpatine taught me to embrace my anger, to use it as fuel. He said emotions made me strong." Luke nods. "And the old Jedi would have told you to suppress them entirely. But both approaches are extreme. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Feel your emotions, acknowledge them, but don't let them control you." It's a philosophy that resonates with Leia, who spent her whole life being told to either embrace the darkness or deny her feelings entirely. She begins to study under Luke, learning not to be a Jedi in the traditional sense, but to find her own path with the Force, one that acknowledges her past without being defined by it. Luke's academy grows, attracting Force-sensitive individuals from across the galaxy. Some are young, children who need guidance. Others are older, adults who discovered their abilities late or who hid them during the Empire's reign. Leia helps with the administration, using her political skills to secure funding and navigate the complex bureaucracy of the New Republic. But she also teaches, sharing her unique perspective. She knows the dark side intimately. She's felt its seductive pull, its promise of power and certainty, and she knows how to resist it, how to turn away from it, even when every instinct screams to give in. Her classes are different from Luke's, where he teaches meditation and philosophy. She teaches practical resistance to manipulation and corruption. She shows students how the dark side works, how it twists thoughts and justifies atrocities, how it makes terrible things seem reasonable, even necessary. She teaches them to recognize those patterns in themselves and others, to stay vigilant against the subtle corruptions that destroyed her. The students are wary of her at first. Her reputation precedes her, and many have lost family members to imperial atrocities. But over time, they come to respect her brutal honesty and her refusal to sugarcoat the dangers they face. She doesn't pretend to be a saint or a role model. She's just someone who fell into darkness and clawed her way back out. And she's determined to help others avoid her mistakes. One day, a young student approaches her after class. Her name is Senna, and she's 16 years old, with a fierce determination that reminds Leia of herself at that age. "Master Leia, can I ask you something?" Leia winces slightly at the title, but nods. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Senna hesitates, then speaks in a rush. "How do you live with what you've done? How do you keep going when you know you've hurt so many people? I see the way you look sometimes, like you're carrying the weight of the galaxy on your shoulders. How do you not just give up? The question cuts deep, hitting on something Leia struggles with daily. She takes a moment to consider her answer carefully, wanting to give this young woman the truth she deserves. "I don't know that I have a good answer," she finally says. "Some days are harder than others. Some days I wake up and I don't want to face the world. Don't want to see another accusing look or hear another story about someone I hurt. But then I remember that giving up would be taking the easy way out. The people I hurt don't get to give up. They have to live with the consequences of my actions every day. So I keep going. I keep working. I keep trying to make things better. Not because it will ever be enough, but because it's all I can do." Senna nods slowly, absorbing this. "Do you think you'll ever forgive yourself?" Leia's smile is bitter. "I don't know. Maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point isn't to forgive myself, but to keep working to be better. To honor the people I hurt by dedicating my life to making sure it never happens again." The conversation stays with Leia for days afterward. She realizes that she's been so focused on external validation, on proving to others that she's changed, that she's neglected her own healing. She starts seeing a counselor, a Jedi healer named Silgal, who specializes in helping people process trauma and guilt. The sessions are difficult, forcing Leia to confront aspects of herself she'd rather ignore, but they help. Slowly, painfully, she begins to process her past instead of just running from it. Meanwhile, the galaxy continues to evolve. The New Republic faces challenges from all sides. Remnant Imperial forces stage attacks. Political factions argue over the direction of the government. Economic crises erupt as systems transition from Imperial control to independence. And through it all, Leia is there. Using her skills to navigate the chaos, she becomes known not as the Butcher of Alderaan, but as one of the New Republic's most effective leaders. Her understanding of Imperial tactics proves invaluable in rooting out remaining threats. Her political acumen helps broker deals that keep the Republic together during its most difficult moments. And her personal story, her journey from darkness to light, becomes a symbol of hope for a galaxy trying to heal from decades of tyranny. But there are still those who can't forgive her. Still those who see her as nothing more than a war criminal in fancy clothes. And Leia accepts that. She knows she doesn't deserve universal forgiveness. She knows some wounds cut too deep to ever fully heal. One day, she's giving a speech on Chandrila when a man in the crowd pulls out a blaster. He's screaming about his wife, about how Leia killed her during a raid on a rebel safe house years ago. Security moves to intercept him, but Leia raises her hand, stopping them. She looks at the man, really looks at him, and she sees the pain and rage and grief in his eyes. "I remember your wife," she says quietly, her voice somehow carrying through the shocked silence. Her name was Mara Hendricks. She was a teacher before she joined the rebellion. And you're right, I gave the order that killed her. I told myself it was necessary, that she was a traitor who chose her fate. But she was a person, a wife, a daughter, a friend, and she's dead because of me. I can't change that. I can't bring her back. And if you want to shoot me, I won't stop you. I probably deserve it." The man's hand trembles, the blaster wavering. The crowd is silent, everyone holding their breath. Luke, watching from the side of the stage, tenses, ready to intervene. But Leia remains still, her eyes locked on the man's, accepting whatever comes. Tears stream down the man's face. He lowers the blaster, his whole body shaking. I can't. I want to. I've dreamed of this moment for years, but I can't, because Mara wouldn't want me to. She believed in redemption. She believed people could change, and she died believing in a better galaxy. If I kill you now, I dishonor her memory. He drops the blaster and collapses to his knees, sobbing. Leia steps down from the stage, ignoring the protests of security, and kneels beside him. She doesn't touch him, doesn't try to comfort him. She just sits with him in his grief, bearing witness to the pain she caused. Eventually, he looks at her, his eyes red and swollen. How do you live with yourself? Leia's voice is raw with emotion. By trying to honor the people I killed, by working every day to build the galaxy they died fighting for. It doesn't make up for what I did. Nothing ever could. But it's all I have to offer. The man nods slowly, then stands and walks away, leaving the blaster on the ground. Leia remains kneeling for a long moment, trembling with the weight of the encounter. Luke finally approaches and helps her to her feet. That was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. What if he had shot you? Leia's voice is flat, emotionless. Then I would have gotten what I deserved. Luke's expression hardens, and he grips her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. No, you don't get to decide that your life is worth less than others. You don't get to seek martyrdom as some kind of atonement. The galaxy needs you alive and working to make things better, not dead as some symbol of repentance. Leia meets his eyes, and something in his intensity breaks through her numbness. You're right. I'm sorry. Sometimes, I wonder if it would be easier for everyone. Luke's voice softens. Maybe. But easier isn't always better. And you've never taken the easy path before. Don't start now. The incident makes headlines across the galaxy, and public opinion begins to shift. People see Leia's willingness to face her accusers, to accept responsibility without making excuses or seeking absolution she doesn't deserve. Slowly, grudgingly, some begin to accept that maybe, just maybe, she's genuine in her desire to change. Years pass. The New Republic solidifies its hold on the galaxy. The Jedi Academy thrives under Luke's guidance, producing a new generation of Force users who understand balance rather than extremes. And Leia continues her work, tireless and determined, building a legacy not of conquest, but of service. She's in a council meeting one day, debating trade regulations with representatives from a dozen systems, when she feels it. A disturbance in the Force, not dark, but not light either. Something new, something dangerous. She exchanges a glance with Luke, who's also in the meeting, and she knows he feels it too. After the meeting, they discuss it in private. What was that? Luke's expression is troubled. I don't know, but it felt familiar somehow, like an echo of something we've encountered before. They investigate, using their combined resources and Force abilities to track the disturbance. What they find is disturbing. A cult forming in the unknown regions, led by individuals who worship the memory of Emperor Palpatine. They're calling themselves the First Order, and they're recruiting disillusioned former Imperials and young people who grew up hearing stories of the Empire's glory. It's not a military threat yet, just a fringe movement. But Leia and Luke both know how dangerous ideas can be if left unchecked. They've seen how easily people can be manipulated, how seductive the promise of order and strength can be. They bring the information to the New Republic Council, advocating for intervention before the movement can grow. But the council is divided. Some agree that the threat should be addressed immediately. Others argue that the New Republic was founded on freedom of thought. And as long as the First Order isn't actively breaking laws, they have a right to exist. It's a frustrating echo of the old Republic's paralysis, and Leia has to fight not to let her anger show. We've seen this before, she argues, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. We've seen how these movements start small and grow into monsters if they're not addressed. Palpatine didn't seize power overnight. He spent decades laying groundwork, manipulating systems, building support. If we ignore this now, we'll face a much bigger threat later. A senator from Corellia counters, his voice skeptical. And what do you suggest? That we suppress free speech? Arrest people for their beliefs? That sounds uncomfortably close to the tactics the Empire used. The words sting, and Leia knows he's not entirely wrong. It's a delicate balance, protecting freedom while also preventing the rise of tyranny. She takes a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. I'm not suggesting we arrest anyone for their beliefs, but we should monitor the situation. We should counter their propaganda with truth. We should reach out to the communities they're recruiting from and address the underlying grievances that make their message appealing. We should be proactive, not reactive. The debate continues for hours, and eventually, a compromise is reached. The New Republic will monitor the First Order, but take no direct action unless they break laws. It's not what Leia wanted, but it's something. She and Luke leave the meeting, frustrated but determined to keep watching. That evening, they sit together in the Jedi Temple on Yavin 4, looking out over the jungle as the sun sets. The sounds of students training echo through the ancient stone, a reminder of hope and continuity. Does it ever end? Leia asks quietly. The fighting, the threats, the constant struggle to keep darkness at bay? Luke considers the question carefully. I don't think so. As long as there are people, there will be conflict. As long as there's power, someone will try to abuse it. As long as there's fear, the dark side will find a way in. But that's not a reason to give up. It's a reason to keep fighting, to keep teaching, to keep believing that we can make things better, even if we can never make them perfect. Leia nods, finding comfort in his words. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if things had been different, if I'd never been taken by Palpatine, if we'd grown up together as brother and sister, if our father had never fallen to the dark side. Luke smiles sadly. We'd probably be moisture farmers on Tatooine, dreaming of adventure and never realizing how much we already had. The thought makes Leia laugh, the sound surprising her with its genuineness. Maybe that wouldn't have been so bad. Maybe. But then who would be here to clean up the mess? Who would be fighting to make the galaxy better? Everything that happened, as terrible as it was, brought us here, to this moment, to this purpose. And I wouldn't change that, even if I could. His words resonate with Leia in a way she didn't expect. She spent so much time wishing she could change the past, undo her mistakes, save the people she hurt. But Luke is right. The past, as painful as it is, made her who she is now. And who she is now, broken and healing and trying, is someone who can make a real difference. Maybe you're right. Maybe the point isn't to wish things were different, but to make the best of what is. Luke puts his arm around her shoulders, and they sit in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear below the horizon. The jungle grows dark, but lights begin to appear in the temple windows as students settle in for the evening. It's peaceful, hopeful, a stark contrast to the darkness both of them have known. Years continue to pass, and Leia's work never stops. She helps establish systems for dealing with former Imperials who want to reintegrate into society. She creates programs for victims of Imperial atrocities. She mediates disputes between systems. She mentors young politicians. And slowly, steadily, she builds a reputation not defined by her past, but by her present. But she never forgets what she was. She keeps records of every person she hurt, every order she gave, every atrocity she committed, not to torture herself, but to remember, to ensure she never becomes complacent, to honor the victims by never letting their suffering be forgotten. One day, now in her 40s, she's invited back to Corellia for the dedication of a memorial. It's honoring the workers who died during the uprising she crushed decades ago. She's nervous about attending, unsure if she'll be welcome. But when she arrives, the organizers greet her with solemn respect. "We wanted you here," the lead organizer tells her. Her name is Kessa, and her father died in the uprising. Not to shame you or punish you, but because you're part of this story, whether we like it or not. And we think it's important to acknowledge all of it. The good and the bad. The victims and the perpetrator who changed. Leia stands before the memorial, a towering sculpture of intertwined figures reaching toward the sky. Names are carved into the base, thousands of them, all the people who died because of her orders. She reads each one slowly, letting the weight of them settle on her shoulders. When it's her turn to speak, she doesn't make excuses or try to explain. "I gave the orders that killed these people. Nothing I say can change that. Nothing I do can bring them back. But I want you to know that I remember. I carry their names with me every day, and I promise that I will spend the rest of my life working to ensure that no one else suffers the way they did." That's not enough. It will never be enough, but it's all I have to offer. The ceremony concludes with a moment of silence. Leia stands with the survivors and the families, united in grief and remembrance. And for the first time, she feels like she's not standing apart from them, but with them, part of a community of people working to heal and move forward. Afterward, Kessa approaches her. "Thank you for coming, and for being honest. It means more than you know." Leia's voice is thick with emotion. "I'll keep coming every year, as long as you'll have me. I owe them that much." Kessa nods, then does something unexpected. She reaches out and squeezes Leia's hand. "My father believed in redemption. He believed people could change. I used to think that was naive. But watching you over the years, seeing how hard you work, how much you've dedicated yourself to making amends, I think maybe he was right. You can't undo the past, but you're building a better future, and that matters. The words hit Leia harder than any accusation could. She spent years expecting punishment, craving it even. And here's this woman whose father she killed, offering something like forgiveness. It's overwhelming and humbling, and it makes her more determined than ever to keep going. As she grows older, Leia begins to think about legacy. Not her own, but the galaxy's. She and Luke work together to create educational programs about the rise of the Empire, ensuring that future generations understand how tyranny takes root. They establish archives, preserving testimonies from victims and perpetrators alike, creating a comprehensive record of what happened and why. Leia contributes her own testimony, recording hours of interviews about her time serving Palpatine. It's painful, forcing her to relive moments she'd rather forget. But she pushes through because she knows how important it is. If people are going to learn from history, they need to understand all of it. How easy it is to fall into darkness. How seductive the promises of order and strength can be. How good people can convince themselves they're doing the right thing while committing atrocities. One of the questions the interviewer asks stops her cold. Do you think you were evil? Leia sits in silence for a long time, considering. Finally, she responds, I don't think evil is something you are. I think it's something you do. I did evil things, terrible, unforgivable things. But I wasn't born evil. I was shaped by circumstances, by manipulation, by fear and anger and the teachings of a man who wanted to use me as a weapon. That doesn't excuse what I did, but it's important to understand that anyone, given the right circumstances and the wrong influences, can do terrible things. That's why we have to stay vigilant, why we have to question ourselves and hold each other accountable, because none of us are immune to the dark side's pull. The interview becomes one of the most widely distributed pieces of the archive, used in schools and universities across the galaxy as a case study in how people are corrupted and how they can find their way back. Leia finds it strange to be held up as an example, but if her story can help prevent others from making her mistakes, then the discomfort is worth it. She's in her 50s when the Hosnian crisis occurs. The First Order, which the New Republic has been monitoring but not actively opposing, suddenly reveals its true strength. They've been building up forces in secret, gathering disaffected individuals from across the galaxy, constructing weapons and fleets in the unknown regions. They strike without warning, destroying the Hosnian system and the New Republic's capital with a super weapon reminiscent of the Death Star. The loss is devastating. Billions dead in an instant. The New Republic's leadership decimated. And a new threat rising that makes the fall of the Empire look like a prelude rather than a conclusion. Leia and Luke survive because they weren't in the Hosnian system, but many of their colleagues and friends don't. The galaxy is thrown into chaos, and the First Order begins its conquest, sweeping through system after system with brutal efficiency. It's the Clone Wars and the Galactic Civil War all over again. And Leia feels the weight of history crushing her. She helps organize the Resistance, a military force dedicated to opposing the First Order, while the New Republic struggles to respond. She's older now, her hair gray and her face lined with age, but her determination is undiminished. She's fought tyranny before. She's been tyranny before. and she refuses to let it win again. Luke is more hesitant. He's devastated by the failure of his academy, several of his students having defected to the First Order, seduced by promises of power and belonging. He blames himself, wondering if he should have been stricter, should have taught differently, should have seen the warning signs. Leia finds him on Ahch-2, the remote island where he's exiled himself. He's withdrawn from the Force, cut himself off from the galaxy, convinced that the Jedi and their teachings do more harm than good. You can't give up, Luke. The galaxy needs you. The Jedi need you. Luke's voice is bitter. The Jedi failed. I failed. My students, my academy, everything I built, it all came crashing down. Just like the old Jedi Order. Maybe it's time to let the Jedi end. Leia's response is sharp, cutting through his self-pity. You don't get to give up. Not after everything we've been through. Yes, you failed. Welcome to the club. I've been failing spectacularly for most of my life. But the difference between us and them is that we keep trying. We keep fighting. Because giving up means they win. Luke looks at her, really looks at her, and he sees the determination in her eyes. The same determination that brought her back from the darkness. The same strength that kept her going when everyone told her she was beyond redemption. If I come back, people will expect me to be the hero. The legendary Luke Skywalker who can save them all. And I can't be that. I'm just a man who made mistakes and doesn't know how to fix them. Leia's voice softens. Then be that. Be the man who made mistakes and kept trying anyway. Show people that heroes aren't perfect, that they fail and doubt and struggle, that they're human. That's more inspiring than any legend. The words reach him in a way nothing else could. Luke returns with Leia to face the First Order. His presence galvanizes the resistance, but he's different now. More humble, more aware of his limitations. And somehow, that makes him more effective. He doesn't promise easy victories or simple solutions. He just promises to stand with them and fight. The war against the First Order is long and brutal. Leia leads the resistance with the same strategic brilliance she once used to serve the Empire, but now directed toward liberation rather than oppression. She's in her 60s now, her body showing the wear of decades of stress and conflict. But her mind is sharp and her will is unbreakable. She faces former students of Luke's who joined the First Order, trying to understand what drove them to darkness. She argues with resistance members who want simple vengeance rather than justice. She negotiates with neutral systems, trying to stay out of the conflict. And through it all, she carries the lessons of her past. She knows how easy it is to justify atrocities in the name of a greater good. She knows how seductive the dark side can be. So she's vigilant, constantly checking herself and others, ensuring that in fighting monsters, they don't become monsters themselves. One of the Resistance's greatest victories comes when Leia manages to turn a First Order commander. His name is Dovan, and he was one of the youngest students at Luke's academy before he defected. She meets with him under a flag of truce, and instead of trying to capture or kill him, she talks to him. She shares her own story, not holding back any of the ugly truths. She tells him about the people she killed, the families she destroyed, the years she spent convinced she was serving a greater good. And she tells him about the moment she realized it was all a lie. how hard it was to change, how much it cost her, but also how much she gained. Dovan listens, his expression skeptical at first, but gradually softening. "You really did all that? Serve Palpatine like the stories say?" Leia nods. "Yes, I was his apprentice, his weapon, and I believed every word he said. I thought I was bringing order to chaos. It took my brother and my father showing me the truth for me to see what I'd become. And you think I'm like you? That I've been lied to?" Leia leans forward, her gaze intense. "I think you're a young person who wants to make a difference, who wants to be part of something greater than yourself. And I think the First Order offered you that. But I also think that, deep down, you know something is wrong. Otherwise, you wouldn't have agreed to this meeting." Dovan is silent for a long time. Finally, he speaks, his voice barely above a whisper. "They said we'd bring order, end the chaos. But all I see is destruction. Systems burned, populations enslaved. This isn't order. It's just a different kind of chaos." Leia nods. "That's what I realized too. Real order, real peace, doesn't come from domination. It comes from cooperation, from systems working together freely, not forced together under the boot of tyranny. It's messier, it's harder, but it's real, and it lasts." Dovan defects that day, bringing with him valuable intelligence about First Order operations. More importantly, his defection inspires others. Young people in the First Order who joined believing they were serving a noble cause but are now having doubts. Each defection weakens the First Order and strengthens the resistance. The tide begins to turn, slowly but surely. The war culminates in a massive battle over Exegol, where the First Order's leaders have gathered their forces for a final push. The resistance is outnumbered, outgunned, and on the verge of defeat. But Leia reaches out through the Force, calling for help, and the galaxy responds. Systems that stayed neutral come to their aid. Former Imperial officers who retired after the Empire's fall take up arms again to prevent history from repeating. Civilians in ships barely capable of spaceflight show up to fight. Because Leia's story, her redemption arc, has become a symbol of hope. If she could change, if she could turn from darkness to light and dedicate her life to making amends, then maybe there's hope for everyone. Maybe change is always possible. In the final confrontation, Leia faces the First Order's supreme leader. He's young, driven by anger and a twisted desire to complete what he sees as Palpatine's work. He looks at her with contempt. "You're weak. You had power, and you threw it away for sentimentality, for feelings and softness. You could have been great." Leia ignites her lightsaber, the red blade she's carried for decades. "I was great. I was powerful. And I was miserable. Power without compassion is just tyranny. Strength without mercy is just cruelty. I'd rather be weak and human than strong and monstrous." They fight, and Leia realizes she's physically outmatched. She's older, slower, worn down by decades of conflict. But she's also wiser. She's learned from Luke, from Vader, from her own mistakes. She doesn't try to overpower her opponent. Instead, she wears him down, uses his anger against him, waits for the opening. When it comes, she doesn't kill him. She disarms him, literally severing his weapon hand. And then she stops. She stands over him, her blade at his throat, and she makes a choice. No, I'm not killing you, because that would make me the person I used to be, and I've worked too hard to change. You're beaten. Surrender, face justice, and maybe someday you'll understand what I'm talking about. The Supreme Leader, disarmed and defeated, stares at her in shock. Then security forces arrive and take him into custody. The battle ends with the Resistance victorious. The First Order collapses, its leadership captured or scattered, its military defeated, and the galaxy begins the long process of rebuilding once again. In the aftermath, Leia is exhausted. She's given everything to this fight, and she can feel her body starting to fail. But she's at peace in a way she hasn't been since she was a child. Luke finds her in the medical bay where she's resting. "Told you we'd win," she says with a tired smile. Luke takes her hand. "You did more than win. You showed the galaxy what redemption looks like. You proved that change is possible. That's a legacy that will outlast all of us." Leia's eyes fill with tears. "I just wanted to make things right, to atone for what I did." Luke's voice is gentle. "You have. Not by erasing the past, but by building a better future. That's all any of us can do." Leia closes her eyes, feeling the force flowing through her. She can sense her father's presence, faint but there, welcoming her. She can sense all the people she's helped over the years, the lives she's saved and changed. And for the first time since she was taken from Alderaan as a child, she feels truly at peace. She passes quietly in her sleep that night, surrounded by Luke and her adoptive parents and the friends she made along the way. Her funeral is attended by thousands. Former enemies and allies alike come to pay their respects. The ceremony is held on Alderaan, in the palace gardens where she played as a child. Mon Mothma gives the eulogy, her voice strong despite her age. Leia Organa's life was marked by tragedy and triumph in equal measure. She experienced the worst that the galaxy had to offer and became part of that worst. But she also found the strength to change, to choose light over darkness, to spend decades working to undo the harm she caused. She was not a saint. She never claimed to be. She was a person who made terrible mistakes and spent the rest of her life trying to make amends. And in that, she showed us all what true heroism looks like. Not perfection, but persistence. Not flawless virtue, but the courage to keep trying despite failure. Not the absence of darkness, but the choice to seek light. Luke stands at the grave later, after everyone else has left. He's alone with his thoughts, remembering his sister. Not the Imperial governor or the rebel leader, but just Leia, his twin, his family. "You did it," he whispers. "You proved that anyone can change, that redemption is always possible, that the light can never be completely extinguished as long as someone is willing to fight for it. Rest now. You've earned it." He feels her presence in the Force, warm and comforting and at peace. And he knows that her legacy will continue. The galaxy she helped build, the institutions she created, the people she inspired, they'll all carry on her work. Years later, historians and scholars study Leia Organa's life as a case study in redemption and change. Her recorded testimonies are required viewing in schools. Her writings on governance and justice inform New Republic policy. Her story is told and retold, a reminder that no one is beyond redemption if they're willing to do the work. The Jedi Academy Luke established continues to thrive, teaching balance and compassion. The systems of justice and accountability Leia helped create prevent the worst abuses of power. And the galaxy, while never perfect, is better than it was. Because two siblings, born in darkness, chose to seek the light. Because a family torn apart by evil found each other and healed. Because a woman who committed terrible atrocities found the strength to change and spent her life making amends. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.